Now, what we're looking at tonight when it comes to social media marketing, particularly in 25, is I guess looking at some of the trends that have emerged and not just trends though, that these are more than trends. They're more like actions that have happened because of the changes in social media. So there's been a shift from a very important thing of gathering followers and friends and connections to something more about relevance of content. And then we'll look at a little bit of content that resonates with interests. I'll go as deep as I can with that, although that's kind of like a whole webinar of its own to try and work that stuff out, as is building authentic engagement. I know there's like so many buzzwords in there. Authentic and engagement to start with. What does that actually mean? And in the real world, what does that look like? We'll take a look at some of that. Leveraging free reach is pretty much just about not paying for ads. And I'm going to show you how that works these days because ads are kind of gone from being the only way you could get anything to anyone, particularly in the meta apps like Instagram and Facebook, to now being something which is like, well, we don't really need it, which is pretty good because I think all the big companies and corporations have taken all the ad space from us. We're going to look at measuring and optimizing performance, but not going deeply into analytics and insights, really just saying these are the things you might want to look at that let you know you might be on the right track. And I'm going to go through a little bit of the stuff I've been doing as well because I did a lot of experimenting over this Christmas New Year break and learned a few things that sort of backed up a lot of the things that some of the platforms, particularly that my friends on LinkedIn and Meta, have been saying over the last 6 to 12 months. And one of the big things that's happened is this shift from the need to collect lots of followers and the need to collect lots of friends and connections to shifting yourself along to reflecting what is happening in the big networks. So TikTok kind of led the realm here. And what I mean by that is that once it was really all about friends and followers, right? Facebook in particular, it was all about connecting with friends. And the more followers and friends you had, the more reach you could have. Your stuff just went further because it went to them. And at one stage, if you think back as far as 2010, it was, what got you that virality, right? And the more friends you had, the more people saw it, the more of their friends that would see it. And there was this viral effect where you're something that you said could, for good and bad, go to millions of people potentially. And then we kind of learned that that didn't happen quite the way we wanted to when we went into things like business pages. Now, though, it's less about that. In fact, it's not really even about that at all. And it's all about what people are interested in. And this is something which is being reflected very much in what I call the TikTokification. So there's been an influence by TikTok over all the other social networks, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, the works, right? What it says is that you will get more reach and more visibility if you are more relevant to what people are interested in. Now, it doesn't have to be big memes. It doesn't have to be newsworthy, current affairs kind of stuff. It's just what your people are really interested in because they are already expressing some kind of behavior in the platforms that shows their interest in those things. And friends and followers are essentially becoming kind of irrelevant. And that's really bad news for those of us who spent, a decade trying to grow followings. And it's really good news for those of us who are going, well, how do I kind of catch up to everyone else who's got all the friends and followers? Well, the beauty is no longer do you need to have lots of friends and followers in order for your content to get picked up beyond just who you are currently connected to. So this all happened very much, like I said, because of TikTok. And they kind of had this theory when they went in to say that what you say you want to see and what you actually want to see are two very different things. So the saying what you want to see is like following this business page. So you can go, oh, I've got 300 people who have liked my business page on Facebook, yet no one ever seems to see my content. No one's ever responding to it. And the reason is because someone might have, yes, liked your business page 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, doesn't mean they're actually interested in what you have to say. There could be just friends who went, oh, I should like that because I know her. Or it could be that they just came across a piece of content once upon a time, expressed a bit of interest in it, and over time that interest has waned, particularly if it's to do with a product or a service. That service they may have needed at that time, but they've never needed it since. Or that product might have been relevant in that time, but again, not relevant since, and may swing around one day to be relevant again. And maybe your content, if it's about that product or that service, could swing around to being relevant to them again. But on social media, we're looking at scale, right? We're looking at tons and tons and tons of people, millions, millions and billions of people. And so there are trends that emerge and there are movements that emerge. Certain things become very interesting. At the moment, one of the great food trends that's emerged is beans, right? A thing called the dense bean salad. Now, if you had have posted more recently about the amazing, I don't know, bean salad that you made at home over Christmas, there's a very good chance that that could have gone to a degree viral on TikTok, particularly, but even on Instagram or on YouTube, places like that too, because it's a very hot topic right now. Beans, dense bean salads are a hot thing. Legumes in general are hot, and that is reflected now in our supermarkets. I don't know if you've noticed in the canned veggie aisle, there's these little cans, and I've got a couple of them over here. I'm living on them at the moment. These little cans are like little tuna cans, little one-person lunchtime tuna cans, but they've got beans and corn and mixes of chickpeas or lentils and mixed in with other veggies, and they're really good. But they are reflective of that trend. So that's something that's been very quickly moved in because over the last 12 months, the TikTok trend of the dense bean salad has led to these new products being put on the shelf. So this is something that actually happens. Now, how does that relate to you? What it means is that nobody was following Heinz beans on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, but they may have an interest in what those things are that they produce. So, how does Heinz get to connect to people through that? Well, they go through the fact that they have released a product that ties directly into that trend. So what people say they want to look at is probably more like my family, my friends, the superstars and the celebrities who I love, the sports that I seem to follow, the interests I have. But their interests aren't dense bean salads or Heinz canned mixed chickpeas or things like that. So that's kind of, if that makes sense, how this trend thing works. People say they're interested in certain things. It doesn't mean they are. And one of the great examples I use of that is when I was a teenager. It was very cool for everyone to say that they listened to Triple J radio, right? But barely anyone actually ever did, apart from the Australia Day Hottest 100 countdown. So while they said that they might like to listen to Triple J, pretty much no one did. And that was reflected in all the survey results were showing that Triple J barely made it out into single figures of listenership, whereas Triple M or Today FM in Sydney or Fox FM in Melbourne or B105 in Brisbane or something like that was always topping the radio charts because what people said they were listening to their friends was more about social status and what it was in practice. So how this has played out for business, it means that your business pages essentially have almost zero reach, right? Which means we now have a heavy reliance on paying to reach people. And this has been the way it's been in Facebook probably since 2017 at least. And to get reach, to get people to see your stuff, you'd have to pay for ads. You'd have to boost things, right? To make sure it got out to people. LinkedIn's a little bit different because LinkedIn is not as dependent on ads as what Facebook is, because LinkedIn makes a lot of money from its premium subscriptions and from the people who are using its professional, excuse me, their professional features, such as Sales Navigator and the Recruiter dashboard. Now, for individuals, for actual people on those platforms, this has meant that there's been a lot better engaging content coming through on their feeds because of this idea that basically what you said you're looking for and you want to see is not what you really want to see. We have noticed your behavior. We know what you really want to see. And that has also come in the form of a huge uptick in the consumption of short format videos. So TikToks, Reels kind of stuff. So that's very much a thing on social media now. Business isn't getting anywhere, can't get any reach. Individuals are getting some really, really good material coming through. So, how do we sort of connect those two things together? And probably the main reason why businesses don't get a lot of reach is that we post the most boring stuff. It's of no interest to anyone unless they're very specifically at that very moment looking for that very specific thing, that book, that very specific service, that very specific product. And that's just not how it usually works with people. And they're not probably showing enough interest in that time for that to be something that's very, it's they don't show enough behavior around that over a long enough period for the algorithm to pick it up and go, oh, you're looking for that person. Oh, I can show you some content from a person who does that. So businesses have been sort of languishing around going, oh, well, I'll just do some really silly posts and I'll try and do some stuff that makes me look friendly and I'll post out, direct messages to people and say, hey, how are you going? And all that sort of thing. And those who follow me on LinkedIn, I posted about this the other day, and that itself has now gone to well over 12,000 people because I kind of hit a nerve. So you cut through the social media noise. Pretty much like the obvious way is to use short form video, and this has been particularly massive on LinkedIn in the last 6 months. So from about June onwards of last year, this really became a thing. It became a very big differentiator in getting reach. Now I went from regularly going, oh my goodness, I had like 5,000 people see my content this week on LinkedIn. Now it's like out of the last probably 8 weeks, 6 of those weeks I've had over 1 million views of my content. And that's because I'm producing a video every day. Now, what does this convert into? It converts into inquiries about the workshops I do. It converts into inquiries about the work I'm doing with Darwin Innovation Hub. When I talk about public speaking confidence, I get bookings. This actually converts to bookings. Now, that blows my mind because all it does is take me a few minutes to produce one of those videos. And I was actually just recording one just before I went live on this that I'm going to post for tomorrow morning. And that's the reality, that I can take, 5 to 10 minutes to produce something that potentially tomorrow morning could bring me 3 new clients to work with in various capacities, or at least brings those people in for me to pass off to somebody who I know who needs that help. But it comes apart, and you're not going to like this. We're back to that place where we kind of need to post often. And by often, I don't mean once a week. I mean, like, I'm posting 3 times a day, at least every day. Now, you don't have to go to that level because I'm very much someone who lives on my social media, because that's where my leads all come from. That's where all my work comes from. That's where my network grows to be able to do things in other states. But often, I would say you need to post at least something every day. And the major reason for this is that there's a lot of AI slop content starting to come onto the platforms. And so people are producing this copy and paste from ChatGPT slop. It's the best way to describe it. It's terrible content, and it looks terrible. It doesn't resonate with anybody, but it's filling up the feeds. Now, you would think, well, why would bad content fill up the feeds? On platforms like Facebook and Instagram, where you've got between maybe 30 and 45% of people who are on the platform are also posting on the platform, there is tons of content to fill the feeds of those billions of people, right? You're talking about 3 to 3.5 billion people between those two platforms. So when you've got 1 billion to 1.5 billion, maybe even closer to 2 billion people who are producing content on that, you don't have to go far to find this content coming through. So what you're seeing is the very best of the best seems to get through, or the most relevant of the relevance is getting through on Facebook and Instagram. But then we go over to something like TikTok. Now, that might not be where you're looking to do your marketing, but just bear with me. On TikTok, it's about 5% of people who are on TikTok are actually making content for TikTok. So 95% are just scroll, and watching. Only 5% are producing the content for that platform. Now, when you go to LinkedIn, that drops again. It's gone up a little bit in the last few months, but it's less than 2%. So for a good like 5 years there, it was about at 1%, less than 1%. Now it's about 1.6 to 1.7% of the people on LinkedIn are posting anything on LinkedIn. And there's lots of reasons for that. That starts mainly with the fact that, oh my God, my boss and my coworkers are on LinkedIn and can see what I'm doing. So therefore I'm not going to do anything, and I'm terrified. And where I live in the Northern Territory, and I think most of you are too, we have a very heavy government presence in the Northern Territory, far higher level of government employees than anywhere else in Australia, apart from maybe Canberra, but even I think we beat them. And that is going to cause problems, right? Because there's an attitude in government, and it's not something that's necessarily formed by government itself, but by people who are wanting to get into government. They have a lot of personality and a lot of presence on social media, and then they got a job with the government, and that all goes away. They just go, I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to narrow down and just do this thing. I've got my job, no more social media. So we have a dearth of content in the Northern Territory, particularly, but within Australia too. In Australia, we've actually got a lower degree of content coming through on social media, particularly not on social media, on LinkedIn, than most other developed nations. For us, it is lower than 1%. So if you're only targeting people in the territory, you're probably looking at less than half of a percent of the people in the Northern Territory who are on LinkedIn producing content on LinkedIn. This is why we get such great visibility. So as the AI slop content continues to come through, you posting often helps you to at least be part of the conversation. Whereas if you don't do anything at all, or you do it once a month or once a week, you're never going to be seen because of the volume of the AI slop coming through. So that's why we say post often. It's not because, oh my God, you now need to be a slave to your social media. No, it's not that. It's just that you are now competing against someone who doesn't sleep, someone who has infinite knowledge and can produce content at a scale that no human can. Let's flip around to the red section here, which is the be genuine. This is about building trust and authenticity. And this is where we go. You can't just be talking about products and services. And I'll look at that bit more in that in a second. And there's a need for, in the yellow bit, to be remarkable. Now, remarkable means different things to different people. I'm sure of that. But what it definitely does mean is that you need to go beyond just the bare minimum, right? You can't just go, hi, I'm a person who does a service. If you ever need to have my service, here's my phone number. And that's a radio ad, right? There's nothing interesting in that as content. So being remarkable means bringing your personality through. And yeah, sure, personality is something which some people do better than others when it comes to standing in front of a video screen or talking into a microphone. But what I'm saying about remarkable is that there's something about you and about your product and your service and your business and your thing that you do, your expertise, that is remarkable. But you may not know what that is. So I would say ask a few people around you what it is about you that would make them want to work with you. Why would they want to, even if they don't need to work with you? What is it that they would see in the realm that you work in that would want them to work with you? Ask around, because you'll find that it perhaps isn't what you think it is. And it could be very educational to teach you a bit about the kind of things that you should be highlighting in your social media. Now we're going to break all this down a bit. So if we're looking at, TikTok and LinkedIn, like I said, TikTok is to be remarkable on TikTok, to be authentic on TikTok is all about short format video. There's nothing else on there. So it's just those usually between 15 and 90-second videos, but they can go much longer, much like YouTube can these days. LinkedIn is still the home of I'm hearing different things from different people. Overall, the theme that I'm hearing about is that text posts, whilst they don't necessarily have the biggest reach, they have the most engagement, and they seem to have a lot more of a link between what you've written in a text post and something converting, something happening that you want to happen. So some kind of action such as booking, going to a link to a website, something like that, right? On LinkedIn, then we start to see that decreases once you start adding images. So images actually decrease the not the engagement, but they definitely decrease the actions taken with your profile or with your other presences online once you add photos and graphics. Then you've got videos. Now, I thought that a long video of about 9 or 10 minutes would never go anywhere, but I got about 12,000 views on a video last week that I did, which was about 3 minutes long. And that's longer than the usual, LinkedIn vertical video that everyone's doing now. So I thought, well, that was an experiment worth doing. Then there's also the short format videos, just like TikTok. Now, those things seem to get like incredible reach, but you won't necessarily get it straight away. What you need to do is spend a bit of time learning about what people are interested in, particularly the people in your network, because that's initially how a video gets surfaced. People in your network, people connected to you will see that video, and then they will engage with it a little. And then what happens, it just sort of jumps to a new level where it can go out to everyone everywhere who has some interest in the content of that video. And their AI can read what the content is, whether it's through captions or just your voice. They can see, hear, and understand what the content is about. So it can be categorized to be sent out to the people who seem to be most interested in it. And there is a lot of stuff showing in the feeds now, especially the new video feed on the LinkedIn mobile app that's bringing that through. Facebook and Instagram, don't write them off yet, particularly if your customer is not a business or a government or a not for profit. If your if your business is selling to consumers, to individuals, to people, then Instagram is still incredibly strong and robust when it comes to putting products in front of people, products to buy with a direct call to action to buy and sell, right? That said, that's an ad, right? It has to be a bit more than ads. Just simply going on there every day and saying the same thing about your skincare regimen or your bath salts or something like that. Saying, well, here, this is my bath salt. This has got this story. It's this culture. It's all this stuff. You're never going to sell anything on there because all you're ever doing is talking about something which no one really necessarily wants because they can buy it at Kmart for $2. So you've got to find something else. Something else is usually, well, we'll look at that in a second, but it's not just completely repeating, here's my packaging, here's my product, here's my packaging, here's my product, here's my price. That stuff isn't selling. And it doesn't matter how many times you do it, it's never going to sell, right? It's never going to get there. There's a new thing called Whatnot. And I know, yes, another social network. This one's a little bit different in the format that this particular platform is built specifically to sell products. So if you've got a product, I got a friend on here who sells an indigenous made and territory ingredient sourced skincare range that would suit this down the ground because she can talk on video. She's great at this. She can get in there and actually do this kind of thing. And this is what we call social selling. And social selling is something that's been threatened to be coming for years because it's huge in China, massive in China. I work with a Chinese influencer in Darwin who's selling tens of thousands of dollars of stuff every single month in China that's like Australian bush food ingredients, superfoods, superfood infused makeup, all this sort of stuff. Crazy amount and that's crazy volume of stuff she's selling to higher end purchasers, usually middle aged to higher in China. And that's crazy when you think about it, but it's never really taken off in Australia, the US, Canada, Britain, or Europe, and just starting to bubble up now. Whatnot is the platform that seems to be where this is beginning, particularly in the US. I'm starting to see it really getting some momentum. People like Gary Vaynerchuk are getting behind it. Alex Hormozy is getting behind it. If you don't know who these people are, they're basically big online influencers for the business realm. So have a look at that. If you've got a product to sell that's not necessarily a service, that's something that you can pick up, you can hold it, you can touch it, you can post it, you can ship it. That's where that sort of is. But for the rest of us who are selling services or ourselves, our time, content that resonates is something that comes up a lot. And what we do know about content that doesn't resonate kind of tells us things that we really kind of already know, right? Motivational quotes are pretty much dead in the water. Like nothing's really, it's just not working, right? It used to be a really cheap, easy way. You'd pick up something from, I don't know, Brene Brown or Oprah Winfrey or from Rhonda, what's her name, from the Secret or whatever it was. You pick up a quote and you go, oh, that sounds great. That's exactly the kind of thing that the people I want to have follow me would want to hear from today. And that's it's dead. Just stop doing it. Unless there's a quote from you, your own quotes, like that stuff. Motivational quotes from famous people, stop it. Unsupported awareness days. And what I mean by this is that constantly going, oh, it's this day, oh, it's that day, or it's this ribbon day, or that ribbon day, or it's this awareness day, or that awareness day, and you're not actually supporting the cause. You're not having any demonstrable, real world, real support for it, other than maybe, oh, we had cupcakes today. And it's like, well, what do those cupcakes actually do? Did they raise money for anything? Oh, no, we just had cupcakes because it was Are You Okay Day. Okay, so if you're not really putting an effort into an awareness day, just veer away from it, because what you're doing on those days is you're being put into that same category as AI generated slop. And most of these awareness day posts now are AI generated slop in Canva. So by going and jumping on that bandwagon of, oh, it's this ribbon day or that ribbon day, without you actually doing something that you can demonstrate in a video, of this is us going and in a march for NAIDOC, rather than, oh, it's NAIDOC week, where we acknowledge this and we acknowledge that. Actually getting out there, doing the march, actually going out and getting involved and talking to people, that shows a real action towards an awareness day. So just avoid them if you can, unless you're really going to dig deep into it. Overly politically correct content that prioritizes, I would say, trying not to offend people as much as you can, over genuinely communicating yourself and your position and your value and what you bring to people, it tends to lose your message. Your message gets washed away in mumbo jumbo. So if you're spending so much of your time just wanting to get the words so that they don't trigger this or they don't trigger that, or they properly acknowledge this or properly acknowledge that, your message gets lost because you've hidden it all behind this thing that has nothing to do with what you do. Now, whilst you may have a political position and you may have a belief system that wants to do certain things, just be aware that this is also stuff that can be very, very alienating, because you probably notice we live in a very divided world these days. So perhaps like including that sort of stuff is making you feel like you're taking a stand. But remember too that not all your customers are going to be people who necessarily agree with you. Now, you may take the line of saying, well, then if they don't, they're not people I want to work with. That's completely fine. In that case, go for gold and put in whatever you like. Just be aware that not everyone's going to receive that in the same spirit that you send it. And then there's that constantly just talking about your product, constantly talking about your services without actually engaging with anyone. When I say engaging, I mean having conversations. Because if you didn't know this, social media is not broadcast, but businesses treat it as a broadcast. I go out of my way every single day to answer every single comment and message that comes to me through LinkedIn, because that's where all my engagement happens. But I've been getting a little bit in Instagram lately too, which is, gosh, now I've had to make sure I've got a system where I can answer all those things in one place so I don't miss things, right? It's not easy to stay on top of this stuff when you're trying to develop an audience, develop some kind of market. So when you are just focusing on putting a message out and hoping that people are going to notice it, don't be surprised it doesn't go anywhere, because there's no conversation to be had. And conversation is the engine that drives things to be pushed beyond just that one person who saw you to the 50,000 people they may be connected to seeing that as well. So what we say that the elements of successful content in 2025 still go around helpfulness. If you are helpful to helping to solve someone's real problem today, which makes it also very actionable, something they can take away today and do something with, then you're going a long way to being really, really successful on social media, for getting yourself known to be the person that does this thing. So if you are, let's just say, just going to throw it out there, a virtual assistant, right? So you're doing virtual assistant services for businesses to help them to outsource the things they don't want to do that you know how to do well. Well, then being helpful is giving the tips. Hey, if you need to be able to, cut half an hour of work from your day, here's a trick in Zero that can help you with your reconciliations, or here's a trick you can do with ChatGPT to help you get this thing done. It's helpful and it's actionable. Someone can take that little bit of information you've given them and actually get something done that day. So these other two on the left-hand side are possibly a little bit controversial, but contrarianism is a thing. It's a really valid, but it's also a very powerful tool to have a position that goes against the crowd. But I put a big asterisk on that word contrarianism, you have to be correct as well as contrary. You can't just be contrary about something and have an opposite view to the crowd. You also need to be correct and you need to be able to back that up and also be prepared for people to not agree with you. Social media is not a place for the faint of heart for those who are easily triggered or offended. So that's something that you would have to consider. If someone disagrees with you, how will you take that? How can you respond to that? I've got a standard response to people who disagree with me. Thanks for your perspective. That's what I say. Thanks for your perspective. That's when you can tell that, like, I really want to have a go at them. I really want to enter into an argument, but arguments on social media are pointless. So I don't. I just answer, thanks for your perspective. And that shuts it down, lets us move on. Bold opinions are the other one. So if you're looking to have some kind of opinion, it needs to be something. It's not just, I agree with all these wonderful things being said by all these smart people. You go, you know what? In my experience, this has happened, and it doesn't really make sense to me that everyone's doing this when my experience is this. Yeah, you don't have to be right with a bold opinion, but again, you have to be willing to state it, back it up, and be willing to accept that that's not everyone's opinion, that that may not be something that everyone agrees with. So bold opinions and contrarianism really do work to get you into the feeds of the people who tend to agree with your values. So if your values are around helping people who are not in a position to necessarily help themselves, then your bold opinions could be about some form of social justice, right? Your contrarianism could be something against the current move towards more conservative governments in the Western nations. So that could be something you make a statement about if it's in the realm of relevance to what your business does. This is probably a screenshotable page on here today. What I can do is I can send you these slides after this through email. So I'll just send out a quick message to say, hey, here's the content. So your strategies for engaging content creation are things that are educational, right? What can I teach? Personal stories. This is what's happened to me. Vulnerability. This is a challenge I've gone through. Unique perspective. This is something that I saw. Is this something you resonate with? High quality production. Now, I, when I say high quality production, I just mean more than just you holding your phone up to you. It could just be get yourself a microphone. It doesn't have to be expensive one. I bought this one I'm using today in JB Hi-Fi because I broke my other travel microphone. So I bought it for what, 199 bucks. And it's pretty clear. It does the job. I don't have lots of lights, but there's a desk lamp on this little motel desk slash nightstand thing that's here. And so I've got it pointing basically. I wish I could show this to you effectively without messing up my entire setup. But I've got a white pillow in front of me, a white pillow to the side to stop all the echo coming through. And I've got the light facing that white pillow so it reflects light back at me so that you can actually see my face. So it doesn't have to be like high tech. I'm just totally like, I should actually take a photo of this setup because it's absolutely hilarious. It's going to take a photo of it because it is like such a mess. And if I could post that on social media a little bit later on, I will, because it's quite funny. Consistent branding means that you have a way of presenting yourself. Mine is kind of goofy. It's a little bit opinionated, a little bit of a shit stirrer, that sort of thing. But it's continually on that path. I'm not always, and I'm not nasty in any way, shape, or form. It's always said in the greatest of intentions. And I try not to get into nasty fights on social media, even though sometimes, gosh, that little devil on my right shoulder wants to whisper in my ear, go for it, go for it. So I try not to do that. Now, this is an example of something I just did today. So about 7 hours ago, I was talking about the three words that changed my whole approach to being confident. This is a bold opinion, right? And the bold opinion is that all those things I'm going on stage about, no one cares. And I'm very, very self-conscious about weight. I'm very self-conscious about being a bald, middle-aged, aging guy. It's talking to often groups of people that are much younger than me. And so I'm walking on stage as a speaker with all of that baggage behind me, or probably in front of me, given it's a belly, and no one cares. No one's even noticing all that stuff. And no one's sitting there thinking about my belly as I'm speaking to them. And I'm trying different formats and different kinds of content as well. And some of that content is, just text. Some of that content is just a photo. Some of it is video. A lot of it's video at the moment. This at the moment, and if you look closely, that person there is not me. It's an AI generation of me that I've trained an AI to recognize what I look like and then produce replicas of me in different situations as I do them. So you can't see my tattoos on my right arm there. The face isn't quite me, but it's very close to me. The hairline's certainly definitely me. I don't know if I got that big a dent in the back of my head. Maybe I do. I don't really see the back of my head very often, but I'm trying different things. And this is something which I say it's probably the one strategy to go into social media with is to try things. Now, nobody has said anything to me over the last 2 weeks that I've been using a lot of AI generated images of myself to put myself in a Bunnings uniform, for instance, for a particular illustration, because I think they know that it's AI and it's illustrative. I'm doing it to be illustrative, right? I'm not literally going into Bunnings and doing a photo shoot because that would be just weird. I'm not an influencer or anything. Well, maybe I am. No, I'd never be able to pull off overalls like that. Okay. Now, how you build that authentic engagement without paying for stuff is going to be a trick because it all involves building trust. And so I know one of the great marketing themes is to, first you've got to get known, then you've got to get liked, then you've got to be trusted after that. So a lot of that comes from, a process. It takes time. Community management means basically getting people to talk about you and answering their questions and comments, that kind of thing. Influencers, then, now don't think of influencers as Bali waterfalls and bikinis. Think of influencers as the people who are in your town, who are in your industry, who have contact with the people who you want to work with, that are willing to do something with you. I do a lot of stuff with Nicole Brown, for instance, who's an influencer of note in the Darwin community, and we do a lot of work together. Like, for instance, she'll go, "Hey, I'm looking to get in front of these people. Can we do something together?" And go, "Yeah, and why not?" And then I'll say, "Hey, I'm looking to get in. I would love to do some work with this group. You know them. Can you introduce me?" That sort of thing. That's influencing. It doesn't have to be influencers going, "Hey, here's my product. Here's a product that I don't believe in, but they're paying me to say I believe in it. So yes, I really believe in this product." It's not that kind of thing. Optimizing your content strategy with different platforms as we come to a bit of a close now. There's different features that will help you on different platforms at different times. You're going to find in the next 3 months that on Instagram particularly and a little bit of Facebook, that social selling thing is suddenly going to become a very big deal. So once that comes in, hop on it, right? Things like short format video on on LinkedIn is very big right now. Lean into that. The interactive features will be things like asking questions, things like offering polls or some kind of way for people to interact within the platform will help your reach and help you to reach more of those people who are interested in your stuff. The maximizing of organic reach then is making sure that you leverage the strengths of those platforms and do stuff that's of interest to people, that's helpful to people. Helpful is probably the easiest thing to go for because you just think of what are clients been using me for? What are the questions they ask? Well, then answer those questions as the content you're doing. When it comes to the social media performance, the key metrics really are things like video views, engagement, so the likes and the shares and the comments, that sort of thing. But you may be able to go a little bit further and measure things such as conversions, right? So conversions. So what I like to do is my ultimate success in what I've been doing is, has it generated a message in my inbox? Has it generated inquiries on my website? That becomes the metrics I'm looking for rather than this many impressions, because honestly, I'm getting millions of impressions sometimes in a week, and that means nothing. It doesn't equal anything. Analytical tools, I've used a thing called Authored Up. So authored as in written, Authored Up is my analytical tool that I use for LinkedIn. It helps me to write things. It shows me the patterns and the trends of the kind of the stuff I've been doing and gives me suggestions for writing better. That's just one I use. Some analytical tools might be things like Taplio, Taplio, also for LinkedIn. Or there's like TubeBuddy and all sorts of different, you just search from analytical tools for social media and you'll see different things. But it could be as easy as your insights on your Facebook page or your insights in your Instagram account. And then what you're doing is continually optimizing based on what you're getting in. So by optimizing, I mean that sort of post seems to work a lot. Do more of that. That sort of post over there doesn't seem to do very well. Do less of that. That's what I mean by optimizing. Double down on what works,